In this episode, we are joined remotely by Sully from Washington, D.C. Please note that there are instances where the audio clarity may be compromised. We apologize for any inconvenience and are actively addressing this issue for future broadcasts.
Welcome to ACEC Georgia's Engineering Change Podcast, your guide to the intersection of engineering, politics, and leadership, all served up with the side of Georgia charm. I'm Brett Hillis, I'm Director of Communications, and I'm one of your guides as we explore where the nuts and bolts of engineering meet the movers and shakers of policy and leadership. But I couldn't do it alone. Joining us all the way from Washington, D.C., the President and CEO of ACEC Georgia, and the signee to my die, Michael Sully Sullivan. Wait, that's not Sully. Hold on.
That's Bill. That's not Sully. I'm Sully. I think I'm the die.
I think so too.
I think I put the die in signee die.
We can cover that when you're back and in the one-on-one. But yeah, I think you might be right.
Okay.
And joining us this week and every time we delve into life under the Gold Dome, Christy Turalo, Director of Government Affairs.
I'm the resident Latin interpreter.
Ooh, I like it. Christy and Sully, welcome back to Engineering Change. Sully,
it's great to be back.
Yeah, but you're not really here. I mean, your chair.
I'm not back. I'm away. I'm here.
You are. So, where are you, and why are you there?
I am in the worldwide headquarters of ACEC National at the corner of L and 15th Street in beautiful Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, where I am attending their annual leadership orientation, which is not really for me. It's for our volunteer leaders. And I'm up here with our ACEC treasurer, Holly Painter from KCI, our ACEC secretary, Tommy Crochet from VHB, and our ACEC national director, Rob Jaquette from Keck and Wood. And they are being oriented to all of the wonderful things that ACEC National does for them and their firms and our industry. And we're hearing from all of the top leadership of ACEC at the national level. And it's great to be here and be a part of it all.
That's awesome. So you're just there for a couple days, and then you're back in Georgia, and we'll be seeing your bright, shiny, happy face again.
Indeed. Looking forward to coming home.
Very good. As
always.
Well, awesome. Christy?
Hi.
Let's just jump right into it. Recently, the legislative session wrapped up with something called sine die. In Latin, that means you sign it or you die.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us, what the hell is sine die?
So, yes, it is Latin. It's one of my only Latin phrases. I kind of overcomplicated my knowledge of Latin, but it means the longest day of my life. Actually, sine die means without a day. So generally, when you talk about legislative sessions throughout the nation, the last day of session is always called sine die, where they adjourn without a day to meet again. Even though that's not technically the case, they have a constitutional obligation in the state of Georgia to meet the second Monday of January. But that's just
whether
semantics.
They do or not.
Yep, it's just semantics. But this past sine die was long. It was about...
How long was it?
It was about a 15-hour day for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got there around 9:30-ish and did not leave until 1:15 a.m.
Wow.
So that was long. Sully can tell you all about the guy who left early on sine die. So you don't want to leave early.
You don't want to be the guy who leaves early on sine die.
Yep. That's when things happen.
I do want to hear that story in just a second. So, but you were there till like 1:30, you said.
Yep.
So business is happening until 1:30.
Yes.
Wow.
A bill that we were specifically following, well, the language that ended up in a bill that we were specifically following passed the House at 12:08 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wasn't just like hanging out waiting for something to happen. Like there was something that we were interested in.
Wow.
There is a lot of hanging out.
There is a lot of hurry up and wait, but yeah, it wasn't like a fun time for me. It wasn't like with 400 of my favorite people on the planet.
So you're there. You don't want to leave. Sully, tell us why you don't want to leave on Sine Die.
Well, I'm certainly not going to name any names.
No,
or
no,
give
no.
any
Generic
including-
reasons.
Let's just say you represent an industry and there's a piece of legislation that you should have paid attention to and followed all the way through the very end of the legislative process. And let's just say they made changes to that piece of legislation which negatively impacted your industry. And you weren't there to find out about it, which means you weren't there to fight those negative changes that impacted your industry. And Sine Die comes and goes, and the bill is passed, and it gets signed by the governor, and those changes that were made at the 11th hour are now in that bill, and you have, as the phrase goes, some splaining to do. You do not want to be the guy or the gal who has splaining to do about why you weren't at the Capitol for the bitter end. The reality is it's a lot of things happen, to Christy's point there at the very end. And they're not always obvious or clear or transparent. So you really have to be on your toes and keep your head on a swivel to know what's going on.
Wow, that's crazy.
And we should be grateful that Christy was there.
We should be.
Yeah, watching out for bad things that could have happened to the engineering industry, which did not happen. Huzzah!
Christy, you live to fight another day.
Barely. I felt dead that next day.
So I didn't prep you for this question. So let's just see pop quiz time.
Okay.
How many bills?
You get for questions? How does this work? I've
What?
never been.
Oh,
Does Christy get prepped for questions? I don't get prepped.
Yeah,
for
we
any
have this whole session time before the podcast where she and I just go over stuff, so we look professional, and we just let
No
you wing
wonder
it
all the time in these podcasts. I mean,
Our number one feedback is, why does Sully seem so lost? So, Christy, pop quiz. How many bills passed
700.
on Sine Die?
On Sine Die?
Yeah.
Ooh. I think about 80.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
that's a lot of bills.
That is a lot of bills.
They did a lot of agrees and disagrees.
Okay.
So as far as actual bills are concerned, that did affect some of their time.
Actual Bill, hello. Nice to see you.
Hi, Bill.
He's just a bill. What's an agree and disagree?
So an agree or disagree, that's a great question, Sully.
Hey,
A bill has to pass both chambers the same way. You are not eligible to go to the governor's signature unless you're the same way.
Okay.
So even if you just
Meaning
change,
the language is
Yes.
exact same in both bills.
in the same bill.
Right.
So House bill goes through the Senate, gets amended in the Senate. Senate changes a comma, it's got to go back to the
Got to go
House.
back. Okay. Gotcha.
So, just stuff like that, just like a comma, that needs to be agreed upon.
Okay.
Yep.
So about 80 bills. Go ahead, Sully.
or disagreed.
Yep. There are lots of disagrees, and sometimes you end up in something called a conference committee where 3 individuals from both chamber, all of the individuals in the conference committee have to vote for the bill. You can't vote no and then be on the conference committee. But 3 individuals on both chambers get involved in the conference committee, and they hammer out the details. And that is most commonly seen with the budget.
Okay. And are there conference committees happening on Sine Die to reconcile?
Yes.
Many conference committees.
It's definitely the least transparent part of the legislative process,
Okay.
because generally the conference committee is agreed upon behind closed doors, and then they report it out.
Very good. So there's conference committees, all these bills pass. What happens next after the longest day of your life? What is the next step for these bills?
They get to go to the governor's desk, and the governor gets 40 days to consider them.
Okay.
And he can choose not to sign a bill, and then it becomes law after that 40-day mark. And I think the 40-day mark will be about May 7th.
Okay.
He could veto a bill. He can say, nope, I'm not going to sign this. This was actually bad, or there was an unintended consequence, or what have you. And then he can sign it, which is, the favorite part of people who are advocates for specific bills. But sometimes you want him to veto stuff.
Right. Very good. So then after that, the laws are the laws.
Yep.
And we get to wait till next legislative session to see more.
Yep.
Very good. Well,
You're safe for about 9 months.
Yep.
Are we though? We'll see.
They could have a special session.
Yep. So we were following some specific things through this session and right up through sine die. So let's talk about SB 195. Can you kind of give us a overview on SB 195?
Yes. So SB 195 was originally SB 374.
Okay.
And that got caught up in some sausage
Wait,
making.
is that a zombie bill?
Yes. No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't a zombie bill. It never actually died. But it did get caught up in some political sausage making, which was excited to be a part of. But SB 195, at the very end, part of the 45-page bill, dealt with decoupling and reducing experience requirements for professional land surveyors. So the bill proposes to decouple the exam and experience requirements, so aspiring surveyors can take their professional examinations before acquiring their experience.
Okay.
Currently, for both engineers and surveyors, you can get your education, and then you can get your experience, and then you can go back and take the professional exam. And at one point that worked really well because the professional exam was based on real world experience.
Okay.
And if you didn't have that experience, you weren't going to pass the test.
Makes sense.
However, that test has changed and evolved to become more of an academic test. So when you have those years of separation between education and the test, you're not going to do well on the test.
Sounds like me and math.
Exactly. And there's a lot of math on these tests. But a lot of states have found it prudent to decouple. And what that really means is they are decoupling the experience in the exam so that you can take your professional examination right after you finish your academic requirements.
So Georgia isn't the first state to do this.
It's not.
Okay.
Nope. Lots of states have already done this for land surveyors. Some states have already done this for engineers.
Okay.
Lots of states have done this for other professions like chiropractors and landscape architects. So this is not a new idea. However, some of the other things in the bill are kind of a new idea. The bill proposes to also decrease the number of years of experience and individual needs, depending on whatever educational pathway they choose. So if you have a high school degree or equivalent, you need 10 years of experience currently in order to become a professional land surveyor. And to clarify, SB 195 only deals with land surveyors in this specific instance that I'm talking about. It does deal with a couple of other professions that are unrelated to us. So if you've got 10 years of experience as a high school graduate, this bill would allow you to only have 8 years of experience if you chose that educational pathway. For an associate's, originally you needed 7 years of experience, and this would bring it down to 5. And if you have a bachelor's degree, you will only need 3 years of experience rather than 5.5.
Wow.
So it does really affect the way that some surveyors can become aspiring surveyors can become professional surveyors.
And is that an area of the industry right now that's lacking? Like, do we need more surveyors?
That is the understatement of the year.
Okay.
So estimates say that this would probably immediately affect 40 individuals that are aspiring to become surveyors. And just to put that into more perspective, I'm going to read some statistics.
Okay.
Of the 1,049 active land surveyors in the state of Georgia, that's only 1,049 surveyors for a state of over 10 million, where development is happening, where you need surveyors. So 420 of those individuals have been licensed for over 25 years.
Okay.
218 of those have been licensed for over 35 years. And 88 of those have been licensed for 45 years or more.
Wow.
So, put another way, roughly 70% of all active land surveyors in the state have been practicing for more than 2.5 decades.
Wow.
So, we need to increase the pipeline and.
Right, because all of them are going to retire sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
Wow.
Some estimates from the Pels Board.
What's that?
They can't retire. We can't let them retire. We don't have enough surveyors.
We'll put a law in place. They can't retire until we have more.
Some estimates from the Pels Board say that at least 60 of them are just keeping their license active.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they may not even be practicing.
That's crazy.
There's no way to know.
That's crazy. So SB 195 passed, and it is on its way or on the way to the governor's desk for signature.
Yep.
Very good. Very cool.
It also deals with like some social worker stuff and some licensing stuff, but we're primarily interested in the surveying language that was placed in the bill.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, the thing we've talked about, I think the past 2 episodes has been on each episode, tort reform.
Torts.
Torts. We were following a couple bills. Why don't you tell us about them?
So yes, premises liability was one of the bills that we were looking at, specifically HB 1371 by Representative James Pritchett. It did not pass in the Senate, which actually was for the best given the facelift that it got in the Senate.
Okay.
This legislation underwent several iterations. It passed unanimously in the House, or unanimously -1. There's always one no vote in the House. And what the bill tried to do was aim to clarify what fault can be assigned to a property owner if an individual or individuals are injured on their property by an unrelated third party. In the last iteration of the proposal, some language is added that would allow juries to assign, quote, reasonable fault to the landowner and if a third party was injured on their property, even if they had no foresight or no knowledge of the matter. And this is super problematic because to my knowledge, and Sully can correct me if I'm wrong, there isn't an instance in Georgia code that actually states that a property owner should be held accountable for what a third party does on their property if they weren't privy to it. And the last iteration of the bill would have created an instance where a property owner could be assigned reasonable fault, even if they had nothing to do with this injury.
And it's a great example of how, what we do at the Capitol, what Christy's doing at the Capitol, we're not just following a bill. You actually have to read the bill. You have to read the language changes. On its face, if you read that language really quick, like reasonable fault, oh well, that seems reasonable, right? It's in the phrase, without like digging into it and thinking about it and going, oh wait a minute, this is bad. This is really really bad. You really have to pay attention to the language of the bills, not just the subject matter and all those things.
Wow. Yep. So what about the other one we were following, SB 547?
Yes. So SB 547 went through the legislature largely unchanged until it got to the House in a House committee, motor vehicles. And a great amendment was put onto it. The bill originally only dealt with seatbelt usage for minors, but the amendment was added to allow seatbelt non-use permissibility in civil cases. So if you were being sued by an individual because you hit them with your car and it was an accident, but they weren't wearing their seatbelt, right now, you would not be able to say, well, they weren't wearing their seatbelt.
Right.
They could have suffered far fewer damages, far fewer injuries, maybe not have died or gone through the windshield if they were wearing their seatbelt. You can't say that.
Wow.
So this bill would have allowed you to actually say it. It would have allowed permissibility of seatbelt non-use. Unfortunately, this bill did not cross the finish line, which was unfortunate. We were a little sad about that, but we were really excited to see someone amend a bill to add that rather than introduce the bill and have to do all of this groundwork in order to even introduce it. So obviously there are some champions in the legislature that the business community wasn't aware of.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really good because we talked about that in, I think, episode 1, some of the seatbelt law and how you can't introduce it in the court if you're being sued. Oh, that's great. So what happens with these bills next? Do you think we'll see them again? Is it kind of done for, or where do you see it going?
We definitely feel like we're going to see these types of bills again, primarily because House Bill 1114 exists. And it's by Representative Will Wade, and that's a governor's floor leader. It's a governor's bill called the Data Analysis for Tort Reform Act, which is exactly what it's going to do exactly what it sounds like. They're going to gather data on insurance premiums and general things that affect torts in a metric way using metrics that I'm not familiar with,
right?
In order to measure the effects of tort reform. And the governor is really excited about this because he wants to be able to utilize real hard set data that the state of Georgia is gathering in order to try to come up with some tort reform solutions. So we're definitely going to see some tort reform legislation come back up next year.
Very cool. Sully, just because you are a lawyer, I'd like to remind people about that, just so they know reasons to dislike you. Remind us, we've talked about tort reform the past 2 episodes, but just a real quick reminder of what is a tort and why does it need reforming?
It's not chocolate cake.
It's not a chocolate tort. That's a delicious dessert. Torts are not delicious or dessert unless you think of them as just desserts for doing something bad. A tort is essentially, I am claiming that some other person, some third party, has done something that has negatively impacted me, and I am suing them for damages, money damages. That's the shortest explanation. So it can be anything from the things we've talked about, right? Of a vehicular accident. One party hits the other party, and the party that's hit sues the party that hit them. Premises liability. Somebody came onto my property and was harmed, and now they want to sue me because I'm the property owner and I have certain obligations under the law for protecting against foreseeable harm to third parties. It can be, business torts, all sorts of claims that somebody did something wrong and they should pay.
Very cool. And Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, but tort is Latin for you suck.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Resident Latin expert here, Christy Tirallo, everybody. Christy, you have mentioned before, and I'm not sure if it made the final cut or not, so that's why I wanted to remind it. Why is Georgia so desperately in need of tort reform?
We are the -- judicial hellhole in the nation.
And that is a self-proclaimed title, or?
That we were named that by the Americans for Tort Reform.
Seems like a good group to do that.
There's an actual website called judicialhellholes.com. You can go to it, and they're like, "Hey, Georgia, you gotta do better because of the nuclear verdicts that we've spoken about in other podcasts."
Right. Well, hopefully that bill will help start moving things along so that we are not the #1 judicial hellhole. We will reserve that for a state that we don't like. I'm not going to name any names.
And other than the data analysis bill that I just mentioned, a direct action bill did pass, SB 426 by Senator Blake Tillery, who is an attorney. Yay!
Oh.
Yes. He's a trial attorney, which was really exciting to see. But it would limit direct action, which is specifically suing a trucking company and their insurance company at the same time if you get into an accident with the trucking company.
I hear those commercials on the radio because I still don't have satellite radio, so I listen to the commercials, and you hear those lawyers come on. I sue everybody. I sue the aunt, the uncle, the insurance company. I sue everybody. So that would limit stuff like that.
Yeah, specifically for trucking cases.
Okay.
Which is why you see insurance premiums specifically in the state of Georgia that are so high.
Yeah.
Because insurance companies, they do what's called exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody that's involved in that specific insurance company, if there's a nuclear verdict against them, the prices are raised on everybody.
Well,
And those are the kind of metrics that the governor is going to be collecting to see how, for example, insurance premiums or have risen over the years as our tort climate in the state has eroded.
I can just send in my monthly statements for my insurance company.
My car insurance. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't have kids, folks. If you're at home, if you're listening at home, don't have kids. Don't buy them a car.
Don't let them get a license.
Yeah.
Because the moment they get a license, that's when they have to be insured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to know that Governor Brian Kemp is working on that on my behalf.
Yep. Specifically on your behalf.
Specifically on my behalf.
Are you interested in other things that the legislature has done specifically on your behalf, Brett?
I don't have a chocolate fountain or a cheese fry bar yet in my kitchen at home, so I'm kind of thinking they didn't take up my other issues this session.
But they did take up some tax issues.
That's true. They did. Christy, session's done.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean your job's done.
Never.
What are you looking at over the course of the next 9 months until the next session begins?
Qualifications-based selection, baby.
Yeah.
We are building a ground game. We're getting more individuals involved. We're thinking about the Center for Rural Prosperity and getting them interested in it.
Nice.
And lots of other entities that are interested. And we really want to dispel some of the myths that came up, that this is too complicated, that this is unnecessary. Because price-based proposals can be incredibly burdensome at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You don't end up with the best quality product, and you don't end up with the right firm if you just utilize cost-based proposals.
Mm-hmm.
So this is incredibly important for the engineering industry and for public service in general.
Right. We've talked about, I think last episode, how QBS saves people a lot of money in the long run. Yeah. I can't think of anything more important than saving some money.
Yep.
Well, yes,
specifically now.
Specifically now, especially since auto insurance premiums are going up. Well, very good. Sully, what do you guys have left up there in D.C.?
I think we've got a couple more hours of orientation, and then we're going to hop on the hometown airline, and Delta's ready when we are, and we will definitely be ready to get back.
We are looking for sponsors, Delta, just saying.
We love Delta. Would love to have them as a sponsor. We love you guys if you're listening,
I'm sure they are.
Yeah, probably.
Yep. Well, everybody, that is it for this edition of Engineering Change. For ACEC Georgia, I'm Brett.
I'm Sully.
I'm Christy.
Until next time.
Intro and closing music. Intention by the Down and Outs. Music used with permission. Engineering Change is a production of ACEC Georgia. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.